This is PitchDeckasia. We are live. My name is Graham Brown. I'm joined in the studio by Tuhina Singh. Tuhina, welcome.
Thank you for having me here, Graham. And as I said, as soon as I walked in, it's a very impressive setup you have here.
Well, great. I'm glad I could share it with you. You're a very positive person. We've had a very good off-air conversation as well. You're bringing a bit of the positive vibes to the studio today. CEO and founder of Propyne. We're going to go into the backstory to the company as well. Learn a bit about what it is that you're doing. Learn a bit about the space that you're operating in, the problem that you're solving as well. Your background, you're 4.5 years now here in Singapore, originally from India. How would you describe yourself? Would you describe yourself as a developer, a programmer, an engineer? What is your story there?
Definitely started out as an engineer. I knew very early in my life that I wanted to be an engineer, and I declared that to my parents. Way before I had ever even put my hands on a computer, by the way. I'd never seen one, but I just knew that I wanted to be a computer engineer, and that's how I told my dad one day. So... funny story. But yeah, I did my engineering from Pilani and worked for a couple of years as a software engineer. But I always knew that I'd never wanted to do application programming. I didn't want to be sitting writing JavaScript programs. So I was more into operating systems and networks. So worked in that space for a while. Did my MBA pretty much out of accident, really accidental MBA. Primarily because I did not take the decisions and the world around me took decisions, including my dad, and I landed up in this space. And it took me a few months to realize that decision has been taken because I didn't take one. So, so I should just stop cribbing and let's see what the world has to offer. So that's how I was in Lucknow and finished my MBA. Before I finished it, I knew that I wanted to get into finance because I had a brief stint with Citibank in the treasury, and I just loved the pace. Personally, I'm a very driven person. I like to work on my own, and that was something that I really liked about treasury. If you're a trader, it's literally just about you, your own work, do your own stuff, and that kind of clicked with me somewhere.
Were you on the trading desk?
I was on the trading desk, yeah. So making markets for institutional clients and for interbank markets. Did that for 10 years, traded nearly all asset classes, have seen both buy side, sell side. And then I moved to Singapore. My last stint, I was with IndusInd Bank. I had set up their derivatives trading desk. Doing pretty well. Moved here only because my husband moved here, and I told my boss that, dude, like, this is happening. And he was like, you sure you want to go? Like, just forget it, just travel weekends to Singapore. The whole world does that. I'm like, recently married, maybe not so much.
You had to make a decision then, rather than it be made for you, right?
Yeah, I was like, I'm never going to let that happen to me again, right? Learned a lesson there way back. So yeah, I came here on an exploratory trip way back in April 2014. And finally made a transition in September. My boss helped me a lot, like, introducing me around and everything. And I finally got a job. But at that time, I also got pregnant. And when I revealed that actually, I had one offer in hand and another one I was in the final rounds. It was quite shocking that the worst fears that I ever had actually came true. The job offer was rescinded when I actually told them. Literally going from like Thursday, we were having a conversation that you should come in from Monday to a point where they said, sorry, we're not hiring for this position anymore.
Right. And they didn't give you the straight answer. Why?
They can't because it's illegal to do so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And 2 months later, they gave the job to another Citibank guy. So it was a very... it was not a good experience, and that's when I decided that I'm not going to look for a job for now, and I'm just going to take a break. I think that was my worst fears come true. I always told myself that I am not a person who will ever be a stay-at-home mom. Like, that was like the worst nightmare. One baby, zero job, not happening to me. So God has a way of, laughing at what you say will never happen. So it happened, and I faced it. And when I faced it, I was like, okay, it's not that bad. Let's start enjoying the pregnancy first and then figure out what next. And I realized that, I've always been a coder. Even while I was trading, I did a lot of coding myself, whether it was small stuff like, doing some amount of statistical analysis using statistical tools like R or Octave and stuff. or it was writing small macros or whatever. Like I was always that kind of person. In fact, I had coded up a small part of my derivatives trading tool, which worked actually on the desk for 2 years. So I went back to coding because I used to code in C++, and now the world had changed. So Python, Ruby, JavaScript. Did a bit of work in that. Took up a lot of Coursera courses, and that's when I actually discovered, blockchain was quite a hype, and I started learning about that. Did a bit of a deep dive into Bitcoin, and that's when I realized, dude, this technology is serious stuff. Like I had actually discovered it in 2011, and that time it was all about like it's a scam, it's a short trade. Thankfully, I did not put on that short trade, otherwise I would have been blown out of water.
Yeah, exactly.
But like from a technological perspective, I realized that this is something that's real, here to stay, and it's going to change the face of finance as I know it. I could seriously see so many problems that can get solved. And I have lived through the great financial crisis, 2008-9, and I've personally seen a lot of things that went wrong. I've seen what was going wrong on the institutional sales side, from a trading perspective. So I could immediately see the benefits that can come around. So that's when I took a call that I definitely will never go back to traditional finance. Not just the fact that they rescinded an offer just because, they thought that my brains are going to go mushy because I've got pregnant. So, I decided I'm never going to go back to banks again.
Right.
Moved into crypto space, self-learned as everyone else is in this space. Attended a lot of meetups. And, since then I've been here, did a lot of small things, joined a couple of companies in between for a few months to understand what's happening, to see maybe there is a company out there that I would love and start working with. So did a few stints with a few people until I realized when I was doing some OTC trading for someone else that custody is going to be a big issue. So I actually talked about it to a few people, and I initially told someone else that maybe I should set this up for you because this is going to be super important for your clients, and they didn't really understand why they should be, holding someone else's private key, so to speak. So that, plus I think another thing that really struck me as insane was a really poor quality of customer service I saw all around. It was such a take it or leave it attitude, So and when I was selling to clients and my support would give me these kind of answers, there was no way I'm going to go back to the people I'm facing and say stuff like that. So I felt terribly sorry, and I literally went like, I'm sorry, this is not how it should be, but I'm not getting support on this for you here. So I was like, this is not how it should happen. I think the third issue that really used to really irritate me was the lack of design. Like everyone's just expected to be geeky, understand everything, take full responsibility. That's not how life is, I mean, I can be my own. It's a Ricardian world, right? It's a Ricardian world. We all live as specialists in our lives. I can be my own cook. I can be my own laundry person. I can do everything on my own. But do I choose to do that? I don't, right? It's not about my ability as much as I want to spend my time doing things that I'm best at, what I love most. So if that is the case about everything else in my life, why will suddenly someone decide that I will be my own bank? It doesn't make sense. So there were a lot of things that were incongruent. A lot of things that people talk in the space where they're throwing a lot of words around which don't necessarily have been thought through. So I felt like, I think there is space to create a solution which is going to address these three major concerns. Like you actually provide security to people for their assets. You create it or deliver it in such a way that customer service is at its core and not as an afterthought. You create the solution in such a way that is easy for people to use it, so that it's not about the technology. It is really about what you can create with it, what you can enable with it, right? So technology shouldn't become a barrier in itself. That's what's going to kill its adoption in the first place. So with those thought processes, I started to work on Propyne way back in November 2017. And I applied to Entrepreneur First. It's an incubator.
Yep, they've been on the show. And
Yeah.
they've got a great track record as well.
They do, and it's a wonderful team. I was
Yeah,
super
absolutely.
thankful I got in there. met my co-founder there. And in January 2018, we both started working. So he's Zan, he's my CTO, very, very able person who handles all the stuff that I have been imagining. And since then, we've never looked back.
Great. Well, it's a great backstory. Let's sort of put on the table what Propyne does. I'll introduce the pitch deck as well. And I think as a bit of context, you, I think, are one of those founders, and I say this with all due respect because I believe it's probably the most interesting group of founders who are the corporate dropouts. You know, there is a group we have this sort of narrative of founders who are like 19, 20-year-old kids or out of Stanford, you know, in shorts and sandals. They're going to change the world. Yet the really successful founders that I find, especially the ones that sit here, are the ones who've done 10, 20 years in that world. They understand what's broken. They're not necessarily going to change the whole world, but they're going to fix a really fundamental problem. And it seems to me that those founders, they come with experience, they come with skills. You know, an investor doesn't have to bankroll their education. They know all this stuff already, and they come with a network as well. So putting all that together, hopefully we've got the sort of genesis of Propyne here. Let's talk about what it is and what it does. I know we're going into the space of custody and digital assets. Indulge us, if you will, what this is about. How does this affect? Who does this touch? What kind of sectors will this, you know, impact? If I can flash up the pitch deck first, just so we can get that going. I mean, it says digital asset custody. Explain to me as if I don't understand custody and digital asset.
Sure. So let's start with custody first. I'll use some analogies from what we're familiar with. So, for example, there are people who will keep their art with another, you know, a vault, or their gold and silver in a vault, or they keep their, government issued money in a bank. So here they are keeping things that they own in safekeeping of someone else, a more specialized third party who understand their business and who can take care in the appropriate manner of their assets. So that basically is called custody. And so what we're trying to do is ensure that we can safekeep your digital assets. Now, digital assets is overall a very large, it's pretty broad as a term, and it is used purposefully. For now, I would focus on a small part of those digital assets, which are called crypto assets, essentially tokens, cryptocurrencies. So we're looking to custody those at this point of time. And we are also looking to custody security tokens, which are going to be, in the market pretty soon or are around. So everyone's who's in blockchain has probably heard of them by now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're looking at the entire spectrum of crypto assets, anything that is cryptographically stored on, safeguarded on blockchain. But we also keep receiving consistent requests to safeguard other digital assets. So it's only a matter of time that we will be able to, open ourselves up to others as well. So the word digital assets is henceforth, like we use it
right. So starting point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the problem at the moment? Why have you started Propyne? Because there are many smart people out there in the crypto world, in the blockchain world. Surely they've already solved this problem. What's broken at the moment? What have you seen different to what everybody else is doing?
So very quickly, I'll recap why you need a third-party custodian in the first place. So depending on whether you're regulated or not, if you are a regulated institution, for you to be able to actually, own digital assets, you can't hold on to those assets yourselves because, they are basically you're deploying your customers' money. So you need a third-party custodian to do so. And there are very good reasons why that whole concept of a third-party custodian has developed over a period of time. There are certain things like human nature that doesn't really change. The second reason is fragmentation, and the third is security. So we've seen billions of dollars that have got lost over a period of time because they've been hacked, lost, stolen. So we're trying to solve that problem. And fragmentation only increases that security headache because, you don't have any universal wallet, so to speak, at this point of time. So what we want to create is this one-stop solution where through a single, simple, very, very easy-to-use interface, people can manage all their crypto assets. Now, and you're right that there are very, very smart people out there. There are a lot of other custodian solutions out there as well who are solving the problem of physical safekeeping of assets. But the way I look at the solutions most of them, they require you. So there are two types, mostly two types. Either it is full self-custody, so you have hardware wallets or similar solutions, or you have fully centralized custodian solutions where they say, trust us, give us your funds, and we will take care of it, right? The self-custody part is like your own wallet for your cash. So you keep a certain amount there for your everyday use. But that's not where you keep your life savings, because you can lose it. It can get stolen. There are all kinds of reasons you can imagine once you start thinking of cash under your mattress. Why we don't want that. Then the second part is fully centralized custody. Okay, I may ruffle some feathers when I say this today. The point is a fully centralized custodian solution where people say, just give me your funds and, I will entrust me to safeguard it for you, is going back to the fully centralized solution that exists, except that it exists without that regulatory or serious oversight that goes with it.
We've seen some horror stories as well recently, right?
So that is precisely the worst of both the worlds and putting them together. Like, how is that even progressive? That's taking a step backwards for both the industries. And that's a problem that I think we need to solve. We need to take the best from both the worlds and move them forward, rather than keep on bickering about, we're anti-banks or anti-financial establishment. No, it is not about that. There are certain things that are right about this world, and there are certain things that are broken. Can we be more objective about it and adopt the best practices that have developed over a period of time? People, or like everybody in finance is not a fool, right? So what I want to do is take those best practices from finance and put them with the best technology that's coming out. What the transparency that it enables, or the efficiencies that it enables. Can we put them together to create a step forward for both these industries in a way that custody becomes more efficient, less centralized, more transparent, less costly? Less costly is not an option right now, but it eventually will become. It has to go that way, because otherwise it doesn't make sense.
All right, I'm going to ask you about what you bring from the world of finance, traditional finance, if I can use that word, so I can understand, where does it fit in with all the existing models out there? Where does Propyne fit in with self-custody and the centralized models, for example, with the existing wallets that are out there? Do you integrate into those, or do you see yourself as replacing all of that?
I don't think we're ever going to replace ledgers or any other mobile wallets. I think they all have a place in the ecosystem. There are different types of people, different types of institutions. They all have different needs, and a single person or single institution will have different needs at different points of time. So we're definitely not replacing any of them, and we're never going to attempt to do that. I think what we're trying to do is, first of all, we create a solution not for retail but for institutions. So it is focused towards that, and it is mostly we offer a cold storage solution, and the idea was essentially only to provide that. But a lot of our customers continuously came back to us, beta customers, who kept coming back and asking for a hot wallet solution as well, and that's what prompted the hot wallet to get added.
Okay, so explain to me cold storage and hot wallet, because you're using sort of traditional terms.
I just keep using a lot of
Yeah, no, it's great.
jargons.
I mean, it's good, because obviously that is something that works in the old world. What's it mean in this context, cold storage and hot wallets?
So cold storage is something that is, in a very simple way, in layman terms, it is not connected to the internet. And hot wallet is where your private keys are actually on connected devices. So very simply spoken, that's how it is. I think what I want, so these concepts are not new. They're very native to blockchain. What I want to definitely do is how we implement these solutions, how we involve the customer partially in such a manner. Whenever you think of security versus convenience, they're always at loggerheads. And the way we've tried to design our solution is such that convenience goes to the consumer and we keep the onus of security on ourselves. I think which is where we're slightly unique, because it's the design that we have thought through from the very beginning. Apart from that, there are a bunch of governance practices which we've put in place. Not all of them are unique, but what is important here is what we're trying to create is, so when you're using all other custody solutions, what happens is if you wanted to do anything else other than keeping your assets in this one place, if you want to trade with them, if you want to lend them out or anything else, you basically have to move them out of that safe custody, right? And that's when your assets are at risk again. What we want to create on top of this base layer, which is what I call base. Base is where your safekeeping, physical safekeeping of digital assets happens. Now, what else can we do on top of that? And that's where our focus in a big way is to create this platform where you can do everything that you need to, whether it's trading, whether it's reporting, whether it's talking to your fund administrators, whether it is lending your crypto out, generating extra income on top of your passive assets. All of that can be done without ever leaving the safekeeping of this custody. So we're creating this economy. We are signing up partnerships in a big way so that all of these partners can come together. And I'm very clear that we're not one of those who will attempt to do it all. We do not want to do it all. We're very focused. We want to ensure that your assets are safe and that you can access all these services in a very seamless manner. Which means that we will have exchanges, OTC traders, fund administrators, we'll have crypto lending platforms, we'll have options exchanges, and like all kinds of ecosystem partners who will connect in with us and give an access to our customers who can do all these things while still being safe in a seamless manner without ever worrying where your assets are going to go. And I think that's a concept I have taken from traditional finance because that's how it has to happen. I mean, the complexity has to be hidden away.
Right. Whereas, in the native blockchain space where people have not necessarily come from the finance side, are they approaching some of those solutions differently? Are people approaching it in a different way in the sense that they don't have that kind of experience from finance? Therefore, they're looking at it without the knowledge of what those best practices were. And therefore, it may be just technology for technology's sake. You actually see a problem that's happened. You can apply best practices from finance, but with a better technology and maybe something that's a bit more decentralized as well. You can approach it from that mindset. There seems to be a lot of solutions out there in blockchain which haven't come from the world of finance. These are people maybe come from the world of engineering.
Absolutely.
So, approaching it from that angle gives it, I think more validity, to be honest. So let's talk about where you've come in your journey, because you've talked about building this ecosystem. You've been around now for 18 months, around about. Yeah. That just coming up to 18 months. Okay. Sure. So how has that been for you? Tell us a little bit about that journey. You started out of entrepreneur first with your co-founder.
Yeah.
So let's sort of look at that journey over the timeline of Propyne. Just walk us through. It's not in your pitch deck, but that would be a great slide to have in there. So let's sort of just talk through it. Those 18 months, what have you been doing? Can you tell us a little bit about what's public in terms of your raises, team size, the partnerships, and where you are with your product as well?
Sure. I think it's been a very, very, very intense journey in the last 18 months. Not a day off since we started. We started out as 2. Today we are 8. And everyone else apart from me is fully technical, either developers or app security or cybersecurity engineers.
So there's you and then 7 technical people, and yes. You're quite technical as well. So
yes.
Right.
So and I am heavily involved in product design, feature design, writing product notes. UAT doesn't yet pass without me doing the final test. So I am involved in that, but I don't do any coding. So that's fully Zan and his amazing team.
You understand coding, like
I can read code.
That's
I
the
can
point,
understand.
Isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
So if he talks, I can ask questions. So yeah, we have an amazing CISO with us. So from a product perspective, it is fully ready. We support Bitcoin. We support Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, ERC20 tokens, Litecoin, Ripple, and we are gearing up for supporting STOs as well. So that's on the product side. We have a fully operational regulatory compliance program in place already, voluntarily adopted, because we're not regulated yet. So KYC, AML, anti-corruption, gifts and entertainment policy, your vendor outsourcing policy, technology risk management policy, all of that is in place. We, in fact, have recently concluded our ISO 27001 final audit. And over next, I think, under 4 weeks, we should have our, certification in place as well. On data privacy also, we've taken a lot of steps, and we're applying for. We've already started the process for this data protection trust mark. So that's issued by IMDA, Government of Singapore. So that should be in place also by end of April. So it's been an intense journey from the very beginning. I think one of the defining features has been that we're not here to create MVPs. We're not here to do things which we will rectify tomorrow. We're not here to create processes which tomorrow we need to fix. And that is why, like, my CTO, my CISO, they're all people with over like 12, 13, 14, 16 years of experience. Our chief designer is like she's the oldest one amongst us all, and she's amazing with her work, about 19, 20 years of work ex. So we've hired people with a lot of experience, and they have been delivering literally more than what I ever expected of them. So when we started designing the solution, it wasn't like, oh, I want to just support Bitcoin. No, we start with the product design first, the platform design, so that it is modular and I can connect into every other blockchain tomorrow. So that's how the design started. Similarly, when we were creating processes for the system, it was always with the perspective that we will go in for an ISO 27001. We will go in for the correct data privacy trademark. So I do not want to have, like hasty, fast processes which we are going to scrap and like start all over again, and in the process build really bad habits, right? So and because we had that focus from the very beginning, at the end of 18 months of being here, we actually will be having these two things in place, which is probably the fastest for any startup. I think it's a rarity for a startup of our age to have that level of maturity in terms of its processes, documentation, policies, procedures, and governance controls in place.
Great.
So,
and funding as well? I mean, how is it funded up until here?
So we've closed our seed funding recently in November. We raised about 1.6 million Singapore dollars. And I think the way we're going, hopefully in less than next 9 months, we should be hitting the road again.
Right. It's non-stop.
9 to 12 months. Always be raising,
Absolutely.
always be selling. So
that's how it works.
Yeah.
Right. So you've just closed with your seed round.
Yes.
And without, I mean, you don't have to disclose everybody, but what kind of investors did you have come on board for that?
So we have some really, really good set of people who are on board with us. We're led by Decacorn Capital, SG Innovate, Golden Gate Ventures, crypto partner Lunex Ventures. We have Chain Fund Capital. We have some really strategic and really helpful angel investors. One of our mentors from EF, who had been mentoring us week on week. It was a very big sign of support when he came out and he said, either way, I do not need to know which way of funding is going to go. I'm going to invest because I've seen you week on week. So that was, I think, one of the big boosts of confidence we had. And so we have a very, very large and strategic angel investor in as well. So we've got
some good partners in there, some good names.
Very good partners. So when we were raising funds, it was very important for us that I think one of the first questions we used to figure out was what else does this investor bring on board for us? It is not about the money. Like I truly believe that if you are creating something of value, money will follow. So it is not about the money only. A lot of people say there is no color of money. I think there is. And I like to distinguish between good versus bad money. So we were very clear that we need to have partners who, and I'm a very intuitive person. I work sometimes I take a lot of gut level decisions. And I did that a lot in my trading. And I actually learned that through my trading, that when I don't trust my gut and I try and analyze the trade idea sometimes, that's when it really goes south. So I've learned over a period of time to really trust my gut. And I do that a lot with people I hire or the investors we work with. And I think I've been truly blessed that I've been supported in this whole endeavor by such amazing people. Decacorn, SG Innovate, Lunex. Oh my God, these guys have been so supportive, so helpful. I cannot imagine that there would be a moment. All my angel investors, I know that I just have to pick up the phone and I have their ear. I can talk to them. They will listen to me. They will come back with their opinions. It's just amazing to have that support.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're good people as well.
Very good people.
I mean, we just had them on the show as well. I mean, Vinny Lorio was on the show today, and Lunex Tushar was on the show.
Yes.
So, I mean, they're all sort of well-known people, but they're all sort of very much want to give as well. not from the very traditional school of VC investment. These are people who want to be involved and want to help out. So you've got some good people on board. What's the challenge now moving forward, looking at where you are in the next 9 to 12 months? You've raised, so you can take a bit of a pause and a breath, but a day off and then back into it. What is the challenge? Is it, obviously you have a product that's live as well. You're going to be raising again soon, and then building your team. Where are you with that? Are you looking to expand as well? Because I imagine that is probably more of a challenge than actually raising capital now, is finding the right people. Because here in Singapore, it's a very competitive market for talent, and also finding people. Why should I work in a startup when I can work on a trading desk in Morgan Stanley somewhere? Or, I can do all that, right? So what is the challenge now for you guys?
I think, so I've actually been asked that question so many times, and the point is I actually haven't felt that pressed for talent. Again, I think it's just blessings. We have found some absolutely outstanding people working with us, absolutely amazing, and faster than we ever thought possible. I didn't think we will be able to ramp up to 8 people by this time. We literally we started looking for our CISO, and within a week, I had my dream person working with us. Within a week, it doesn't work that way. So many things have to fall in place for that to happen. Similarly, we found our designer, our full stack developers. They're absolutely outstanding people. So we haven't faced that issue yet. Before I jinx myself, I really should just go touch wood on that.
Right.
But I think what we need to do now is, I think the biggest focus area for me is to make sure that execution is going to be the key for us. So making sure that every one of us is now rowing in the same direction. As a startup, the only asset we really have is speed and agility, and we can't squander that asset away. So ensuring that everyone knows what everyone else is doing, and we're all working on the same direction. It's not like I have priority A and it depends on 2 other people who are not prioritizing it. That's exactly the recipe for disaster. So way back in December, once we had known that we are going to have people joining us by end of December, I started working on OKRs. So I read up John Doerr's book on Measure What Matters. I've read a couple of other books. I did a lot of reading on what goes wrong with OKRs. And once I was sufficiently comfortable with it, we rolled it out in January, starting out with me as an example. And I think that is my top priority, is to ensure that OKRs actually get implemented the way they should be. They get institutionalized so that it's not just me driving it and everyone owns it. Everyone understands what it means to even put it down. And we're all learning. None of us have ever implemented this before. But what is already happening over the last 2 months that we've implemented it, I can see that there is so much transparency in what everyone's doing. The commitment levels are through the roof because you're, committing not to yourself, but to your team. And that's helping us. But obviously there are a lot of things that are also not perfect. So we're trying to improve how we word things, how we say things, how we target things. So we're learning, but I think that the execution, making sure everyone's on the execution and making sure that while I push everyone, there are no exhaustions in the process. Everyone gets to rejuvenate as well as a team. Bonding together, because we are all new, we're just getting to know each other. That becomes extremely important. We're spending so much time with each other, and some of us have gone through some tough personal times literally in these 3-4 months that we've known each other.
Yeah, life happens.
Yeah, and so making sure that all of this can go together properly, that's, I think, going to be my biggest focus. And on the team development side, I think now it's time that I hire someone who's more non-technical, who can start taking things from me, because I'm increasingly beginning to feel that I'm getting stretched way too much.
Absolutely. That is the challenge of any founder. Where do you see your role going? Because there are many options there, aren't there? I mean, if you sort of take the Dyson role where, you become like the technical creator, you bring on somebody to do the CEO type role because you just enjoy tinkering with code, for example. Or you could take more sort of the pure leadership role where you're out there selling what you're doing and the PR, the marketing, the relationships, the key accounts and all that stuff. and then have somebody else looking after the technical stuff. Where do you see yourself sort of falling into this in terms of sort of taking this forward? Because this will be your challenge, I think, isn't it? Because you can do all of it. And that's a blessing and a curse, because you can code and you can also sell.
I can code, but let's be very clear. I can code up an MVP, but I'll never trust a production system for my life if I wrote it. So.
And you've got people who can look after that, right?
Yes.
So where do you see your role in Propyne sort of moving forward? What sort of things will you be doing more of? And importantly as well, less of, because as you grow, you can't be doing everything.
Yeah. So I think EF actually made it very clear to us, the whole process through which we went through with EF. I think there is no confusion in what my role is going to be. Very clearly, it's Zan who is responsible for product, and I'm responsible for sales, for being the spokesperson, for PR, for branding. All of those things is mine. So he's the one who's internally focused, and I'm going to be the one who's been externally focused. The last 2 months since we've done the raise, I have been very internally focused, mainly to get the house in order. But I have to, and I'm increasingly now going back to my original role, which is to be externally focused. So that's very clear. We're hiring people to help us start taking the testing off my hands completely. So I just look at the last product finally. Otherwise, I was intimately involved with testing as well. We will have a product manager. We already have someone in-house who is getting groomed into being a product manager, so that all the product notes, all of that system stuff gets out of my hands as well. There are a lot of other roles that I'm trying to figure out, there would be a legal and compliance, there's a regulatory role. So those pieces, we've identified people. We are looking, so there are other parts, and we are also looking for a business development person. So there are quite a few roles that are now non-technical that we are beginning to look out for. In fact, I think over the next couple of days, we will be putting out a few job descriptions. And our investors have been really helpful guiding us towards it. To be honest, I was still not ready to accept that I need to hire somebody from Seattle. I was like, no, I know this stuff best. I can sell better than anyone else.
Yeah.
And, and then,
That's the blind spot of the founder, right? But to have those people around you who can help you identify that's absolutely critical, because on your own, we all do that. Yeah.
Correct. So we've had a few hours of conversation where I saw the fallacy of my thought process, and I became a lot more aware of how much help I need. And I'm in the process of writing out some job descriptions.
Great, good for you.
Now.
So you said something interesting, Tuhina, that you make a lot of decisions from your gut, from instinct, and that served you really well in the trading desk. And even when you try and get logically in the weeds of the patterns and try and analyze it, it doesn't work out for you as good as going with that sort of subconscious, that that snap decision that you're making about things and people as well. When you're building a team as well, I'm sure you're going to apply a bit of that you're going to see people for good and for bad, but it works for you. If you've got sort of the right mechanisms and experience, then it's a great decision-making tool to have. When somebody reaches out to you, and they may be people that watch this as well and say, look, I absolutely love what you're doing. Your story has attracted me to this particular space, and I want to now explore how I can sort of be part of this. What is it that you're looking for? Because you've identified the hard skills, if you like, the business development person, the project managers and so on. But mindset-wise, what are you looking for? Because I imagine that's a lot of what you are gauging on those sort of snap decisions, those intuitive decisions. What are the sort of the check boxes there to help people understand that they're making the right decision, reaching out to you? What are you looking for mindset wise?
Sure. So I'll preface the answer. Gut decisions are by definition can't be defined, what exactly you're looking for.
Okay.
But what we really do is what we've done so far is that the funnel has always been filled up by Zan so far. Also because it made sense, because it was all technical roles that we were looking for, and he puts them through a very rigorous process. There are tests to be completed, there are jobs that he gives them to complete, and then he looks at the quality of answers, quality of code that has been written out before he even gets to the interview level with them. Only when he has crossed them through these 2 or 3 tough hoops, and he's very comfortable and he says I love this person, you have to see him, that's when I walk in. And that's when then my whole gut about whether we have the right vibes, whether this person feels like he's the right fit for the company. And I think from that perspective, what I will attempt to say what I look for in a person. I'm not sure if I'll be able to cover everything, but for me it's very important that a person is a good person at heart. People who can think beyond themselves. Life is not about me. It is not about what I can take away. So even on a negotiating table, if I'm sitting with you, I'm not the person who will fight for that last penny. I like to leave it on the table for the other party, because when I deal with people, it is not transactional in nature, right? It is about that long-term relationship I'll create with you. It'll always be a give and take. So I try and give as much as I can, because I don't know when I will need to take from you, and I don't know how much will I need to take from you. I need to make sure that you have that bank balance to be able to give to me and still be happy. So and I take that thought process without thinking it like that, but like that's how I am, and that's how I like to see in other people who can look beyond themselves. When people are like that, then they think more team. They think more about, so like for example, even when we do OKRs, I one thing I make sure that everyone understands very clearly: this is not a management tool. This will not be used for performance evaluation. It is not about this person's not done what he said, what he committed on Monday. On Friday he hasn't completed that. It's about what is blocking him or her. What can we do as a team? How, if we all win or lose together? So we all have to put ourselves, out there for the team. So I think that's something I really look for. I think another thing I would look for is I can't stand people who are rude to others. So if I find rudeness, it's a big put off for me.
Right.
Very big put off.
And you've worked in an environment like the trading desk where that was just kind of natural, right? So
Yes.
yeah, it's not necessary, right?
No, so there's a difference. When you're working and you're professionally, like there are people who will be using all kinds of language there.
Yeah.
That doesn't define whether you're rude or not.
Yeah,
you are
absolutely.
expressing some extreme emotions in that moment.
Yeah.
But what happens after that? Can you sit down? Like, are you going to carry that grudge, after the work gets done? Or is it in that moment, it's over and, I still respect you as a person. We can go out for a drink afterwards, right? That's what I look for. People who can respect you for who you are and not get personal about things, which is very important in a high-stress environment. And people fly off the handle all the time, right? You can't live with those emotions continuously. Like, it's super damaging.
So in terms of company culture, I think it's probably a key part of who you are and what you do. Is it like a high-stress culture? Is it like because that could have been like the trading desk type culture. Is that like that in Propyne, or what kind of company culture do you have? Because I imagine people, that's going to be, apart from you and Zan and your story, the culture of the company has got to be what attracts people to what you do, isn't it? So give us a feel for what that, you mentioned about some of the tools you use, but what's it actually like in Propyne?
Definitely not a high-stress environment. I do not want to ever track, like it's only in the employment contract where you say these are your working hours.
Right.
I don't care what your working hours are. I don't care where you're working from. What I really care about is that you will tell me what you want to do, and you will hold yourself responsible for achieving those goals. If you're stuck, you will come and say, I am stuck here for this reason, and let's get help here. So I do not want to babysit people. I do not want to know what you're doing when you're doing. And I think every person has and must be aware of what makes them effective, what makes them tick, when they like to work, how they like to work. And people define that in our company. My CDO is very clear. No meetings in the first half. No one disturbs me in the first half. So till 2 o'clock, I never schedule anything for him unless it's something absolutely important. And then I have to take his prior permission for that. That's true for everyone else. There are people who I want to come in only at 10:30, and then I will work till whatever time. There are others who come in at 8:15 in the morning. So it's totally your own cadence. What makes you tick, what makes you effective. And it is important that people take that responsibility for themselves. We all have 168 hours. What do we do with those 168 hours? And it's very important that all of us, when we look at each other, we have to remember that we're never going to be a team of mediocres. This is not a team of mediocres. It's a team of superstars. And you're not a superstar by yourself. What we're trying to create here is much larger, much bigger, much more significant than what any of us can ever achieve by ourselves. We can only achieve it when we're together and we're helping each other. And that's what I try to remind everyone every day, that 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, you will look back and you will think of this time in your life as the most productive, the most amazing, the most fun time of your life. that you would be proud that you were there when all of this happened. And one of the things we're doing is every time an employee is getting, so we have this 3-month probation period. After that, we've created these nice little cups which our designer created with their name and their own fun doodle stuff and how they like to think of themselves as. And everyone's getting that cup with like employee number written on that. So
So you're up to number 8 at the moment.
We're at number 8. But the number 8 hasn't been, he hasn't finished his probation period yet, so he's not got the cup yet.
Good.
So.
Well, I've really enjoyed hearing about your journey and Propyne as well. And I think, true to what you're doing is, I know we could have gone really deep into the technology, but how important it is that you are, on what I believe, listening to your story, is the people behind this is really what is this Propyne story is about. And, obviously it's an industry of trust and an industry of relationships. So it makes sense that the people who are doing that are really, they're passionate about that rather than people who can just code, because you guys obviously can code as good as anybody else. But that's only as good as your ability to go out there and sell that, talk about it, and build relationships as well, both inside the crypto space and with the traditional financial institutions as well. So I think you've done a really good job of explaining that today and, coming across as well. I can see you're really passionate about this and you have very strong opinions about what this should be and shouldn't be. And that may put some people off, be honest, right? Let's not beat about the bush. Some people may be put off by that, but I think it will attract the right people at the end of the day.
Having said that, actually, so you're right about expressing strong opinions. I'll qualify that. Have strong opinions, weakly held.
Right.
So I'm always open to hearing a counter argument of I'm never immune to not hearing the other side of the story. If I did,
Great.
I wouldn't be alive in trading.
You're not a tyrant, right? Exactly. So I mean, even with trading, I think it's like the best traders are the ones who can look back and learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, you don't get married to your trade. No, you have to be able to throw your baby out of the water.
Exactly. You've learned all those hard lessons as well. So it's great. Tahina, it's been a real pleasure sharing the story with us. What we'll do is we'll make all the details available for those people that want to reach out to you as well. Sure. We've got sort of the basic. We didn't go too deep into the pitch deck today, but I think your ability to tell a story really sort of carried that. The best way for people to reach out to you, what would that be? What's the most effective? Because you're busy now building a team, so you're going to be obviously out there as well doing your, the front-facing part of the business, which is your role, right? So people are going to reach out to you. What kind of conversations do you want to have? Who are you looking to speak to? And also, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I think the best way is to mail me. I regularly check mails, and it also makes sure that I get back to people and things don't get lost in messages. Telegram is the worst way to reach out to me.
Yeah, it's a noisy world. Yeah,
is also very, very bad way to reach out to me. Sometimes I don't get to it for like months. So email is the best.
Right.
Maybe WhatsApp as well. So I check that regularly. And I am looking to talk to people who are passionate about making a difference. But and it's not. I'm not saying this as a perfunctory word. I really passion is something that I really admire in other people. It's a quality. It's a value that I have in myself, and it's something I actively look out in other people, because I think if you have passion and if you believe in something, that's what is going to carry you through those troughs of sorrow, which will eventually come. I was looking at one of those podcasts that you were talking about, where you said, or someone in your podcast said that 90% of the companies or 99% of the companies will go through that trough of sorrow 6 to 7 times. I think it was Antler CEO.
Oh, okay, Magnus. Yeah.
Magnus was saying this. So I think that I believe that passion is one of those things that will carry us through, and in a smiling manner.
Yeah.
It's like, that 30th kilometer in your marathon where you're pushing yourself through. Painful, but you have to do it.
Absolutely.
And have a reason. And they need to have a reason beyond just, I just want a job. Or, when I have hired people from outside, are they just coming to Singapore because they want to come to Singapore, or because what we're doing or what work we're going to do, or the career path that they see with us is something that is going to keep them with us over a period of time. It's something that they're passionate about, that they will learn. Personal growth is super, super important for me, and not just in terms of career. So people who like to develop themselves, people who have introspective skills, who can ask themselves questions, what's going wrong, they are very deeply attractive for me. So, and I think I like to surround myself with those kind of people. So I guess team members would also have some of those qualities.
Absolutely. And why not? Well, it's Tuhina Singh, everybody, CEO and founder at Propyne. Tuhina, thank you so much for coming today, sharing your passion with us. It's been a real privilege, and sharing the Propyne journey as well. We'll put all the details in the show notes. And all the best.
Thank you so much.
This is an exciting journey for you. The next 12 months are exciting. See how it goes. I mean, it's not going to go in a straight line. We know that. But the fact is, hopefully you're still smiling at the end of it, and you can share an update with us at some point. Part 2 in the journey.
Would love to. Thank you.
Excellent.